tractor blight.
Crusty shit.
It's politically correct to say this?
Yeah, there's one word, but it's probably, I don't know if you want to hear it.
My name is Salvatore Avallone. I am the second generation of Avallone family involved in wine making job. I'm the owner of Villa Matilde. Villa Matilde is an estate located in Campania region, the region of Naples, and the region also of the production area of the ancient Falerno del Massico. So Falerno was a legendary wine since Roman imperial age, and was very important to know that this wine was the most expensive, important wine, was considered not just a wine, but in a legend in the story of winemaking in the south of Italy. He was produced, fermented, refined in the clay amphoras. Actually, also in Villa Matilde, we produce our wines fermented, aged, and refined, both in stainless steel and in amphoras. The amphoras fermentation is very important because through the microporous of clay, we have a microoxygenation of the mass in the wine, so the wine can become much more rounded and clear in the aromatic profile of the wine. We want to concentrate in a sip of our Falerno 2,000 years of history, 2,000 years of evolution in winemaking. So we produce a modern Falerno with a lot of history in the past, a lot of ancient technique that we use also today in this type of wine, in this type of production.
Hello, my name is Tom Mortimer, and I'm the owner and founder of LeCadeau Vineyard in Dundee, Oregon. My word to talk about is aromatics. And aromatics for Pinot Noir is incredibly important. It's why we have this great big glass that's a big bowl to try to get the great sense and nose that comes off of Pinot Noir. I often think that people have different preferences, but also people read senses differently. So what I might detect and what you might detect could be quite different. With aromatics, what we're looking for are just beautiful smells that are compelling, perfume, things of that sort. And how we make the wine, where the fruit comes from, what clones we use, the type of oak, the way we make the wine influence ultimately the aromatics, which is half of what Pinot Noir is all about.
My name is Paul Durant. I am the owner and general manager here at Durant Vineyards. And one of the words I like to describe wine sometimes is austere, and sometimes that can be good and bad. But in general, a wine that is austere to me is highly structured, not a lot of fruit to it, and maybe a little bit more, to use another word, grippy on the tannin side. So it may kind of smack you upside the head a little bit, but also I find that those austere wines, when I'm tasting out of barrel or early in a vintage, they often become very elegant wines, and can be, that austere structure can become something really beautiful.
Hi, I'm Annie Shull from Raptor Ridge Winery, talking about Vino Lingo here. Raptor Ridge tends to come up with a lot of slogans every year, and we put them on t-shirts at the end of the season. And one of the things that I threw out the other day to our cellar team is, at the end of our group lunch, I'll often say, "Oh, well, time for you to go back to the salt mines." And people seem to enjoy that and think it was pretty hilarious. So that's one of them, is back to the salt mines, to toil away.
My name is Risch. I'm with Pellet Estate Winery in Napa Valley, St. Helena. And my word today is barnyard, which also can be referred to as Brett or Brettanomyces. It's out here in California. It's not necessarily in a an ideal trait for a wine, but it has its purpose on some wines. In France, wines like Haut-Brion, the Mission Haut-Brion, display significant qualities of Brett in it, and it is not considered a flaw, where in the New World, out here, it is considered a flaw. But when you stick your nose in the glass and say it smells a little bit like a barnyard, you're talking about Brett.
Hello, I'm Jean Filière, and my term is barrel fermentation. Barrel fermentation is a way to ferment red grapes in a 59-gallon barrel. I started doing that back in 2001 to try to make the wine a little bit more approachable faster, despite a potential of ageability. And so what I did is wanted to expose the grapes as fast as possible, pop the head of a barrel out, and use it as a mini tank. What it does, it not only integrates the wood tannins, of course, and the aromatic part of the barrel, but it most importantly softens the tannic structure and makes a wine that has a little bit more density. It's a fairly labor-intensive way of making wine, but it really brings layers of complexity and a real good round fatness to the wine that helps a lot. So, if you have any question, ask Ray. He knows, because he did it actually for many, 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 many days.
My name is David Spector. I'm the owner and winemaker at Bells Up Winery, and my word of the day is batonnage, which is an incredibly fancy word which just means that you are stirring up the dead yeast cells and the little grape components, bits that are at the very bottom of either a tank or of a barrel. And the purpose of doing that is simply to build structure in the mid-palate of the wine. And you do this, well, you can do it you can do it either once a week, or I tend to do it about once a day, but I've always been driven nuts by using fancy terms to describe very, very simple things, ultimately. So whenever folks ask that question, they'll say, oh, do you do batonnage? And I say, oh, you mean stirring? Yes, I do a fair amount of that.
My name's Justin Seidenfeld. I'm the winemaker at Rodney Strong Vineyards in Sonoma County, California. And the word I'm going to discuss is batonnage, which is a French term which means the stirring of the lees. So lees are the solids and the dead yeast cells that fall to the bottom of the barrel, and we do this process of stirring that up by hand, not by machine, where it brings those lees back into the solution of the wine, adds creaminess. It acts as an antioxidant, so we can use less sulfur to protect the wine, and it makes the wine fresher and brighter and more full in body. Batonnage.
Hello there, Henrik Paulsen from Release Winery, Napa Valley. My Vino Lingo word is bleed or saignée. And to explain that word is that when you are getting your grapes in and you are starting fermentation, you want to bleed off a little bit of juice, so you actually increase the amount of skin and juice ratio. So by bleeding off, you concentrate your color in the wine, and that is the saignée or the bleed.
Chris Hyde Estate Winery here in Carneros. I'm going to tell you about budding. What we do out here is chip budding. We cut buds. And these are selected from dormant vines, and the plant material is propagated by cutting the buds and inserting them into the trunk of your rootstock. So, another term for grafting is budding. You cut the buds, you slip in the chip bud, you tape it up, you bury it, and then you come back and it comes right up the stake, and that's the grapevine right there.
So I'm Ian McClellan at Annabelle Wines here in Sonoma, California. I'm a cellar master, and what that means is that I have a good understanding of all of the logistics and the operations of a winery, day-to-day operations of the winery, and what it takes to keep wine tasting awesome throughout its entire life, which can take up to 3 years sometimes in barrel. So my job is to make sure that wine stays clean and perfect the entire time. So essentially, I'm the liaison between the winemakers and the wine. From bin to bottle is where I shine.
This is Martin Bernal Hafner. I'm the winemaker at Topel Winery up in Hopland. And the word that I'm going to go with is complexity. Complexity is used in the wine industry, but a lot of times it's kind of hard to explain because it can mean many things to many winemakers and many consumers. But I got to know the word basically when I was in France working at Chapoutier and speaking with Guillaume Poutier, who was the winemaker at the time. He really saw complexity in his wines. He didn't want a monotone basically taste to his wines. So a lot of times he didn't just want perfectly ripe grapes, he wanted a diversity of ripeness. Certain kinds of tannins, variations in tannins and layers that made his wines distinct. Because sometimes when you have very uniform grapes and ripeness, it also gives you a monotone wine in a way. So I think complexity can be interpreted in many ways, but it's understanding also what you want in the wine and what it's gonna do to in the palate. Yeah, so basically that's complexity in a nutshell, just various ripenesses that will offer many things on your palate.
Hello, my name is Carissa Mondavi, and I'm here to talk about my family's wine continuum. My word is continuum, and for us, the name continuum speaks to the fact that we haven't missed a harvest since 1919, but we've evolved from shipping grapes first throughout Prohibition to, with the repeal, then getting into bulk wine here in Napa Valley, to then Charles Krug Winery in the pursuit of fine wine in 1943, to my grandfather beginning Robert Mondavi in 66, to now here with Continuum we're dedicated to a single wine from a single estate. But I think continuum also means to us it's the cycle of the vine from year to year. And it's the continuity of wine being on the table since the beginning of civilized man. So there are a lot of continuums that this name means for us. So
I'm Dario Sartui. I'm the owner of Castello di Amorosa. And I built the castle. I operate the castle. I'm no longer very involved in the winemaking part, and I haven't been for years. But I am the crazy bastard who built the castle.
My name's Nick Goldschmidt. I'm a winemaker from California, originally from New Zealand, but I'm also an inventor and an experimenter, and my whole goal in life is to make wines that last. People often ask me, how long is your wine going to last? And I say, well, 15, 20 years. And what's the proof? The proof is that I've made wine from those vineyards for 15, 20 years. I love it when a winemaker comes in and says, hey, how long is your wine going to last? And they go 20 years. And I'm like, hey, dude, show me a wine you made 20 years ago. I didn't. So one of the ways that wines age is through this oxidation and heat, etc. So if you drink red wine, you'll notice that the color of the red wine moves from purple to red to brown to orange as the wines get older. The reason why wines evolve like that is this thing called polymerization, this polymeric pigment that falls out. So my word that I'm going to use for Vino Lingo is crusty shit. So when you get an old bottle of wine and you see this crust on the shoulder of the bottle, that's crusty shit. That's polymeric pigment falling out. That wine has become unstable. What I do in my winemaking is make sure I get rid of all that unstable tannin through a process that I stole, obviously, from another winemaker, because every idea I've ever had I've stolen from another winemaker. So you won't see that on my wine. My wines will go purple and red. They will age, but they will not go brown or orange. So if you see crusty shit on the side of your bottle, and it's not your birth year, the year you got married, or the year of your first child, sell it, get rid of it, give it away. It's just falling over. It's not going to be a great wine. Anyway, crusty shit. Delete it.
Sarah Fowler, winemaker at Péjus and Calmare, and my word for this moment is DBADA, which is D-B-A-D-A. It's our acronym, and it means don't be a dumbass. And we focus on this on our cellar crew, production crew, and more importantly, interns.
Okay, so hi, I'm David Ramey. I'm the owner and winemaker, sort of almost, not quite emeritus, but heading that way, of Ramey Wine Cellars in Healdsburg, California. And Ray has asked me if there's a favorite wine word that I have. And I'm going to answer it in a different way. First, I'm going to steer everybody to Eric Asimov's column from this is Friday's, from Wednesday's print edition of the New York Times, where he gives some very useful wine descriptor words. And then I'm going to say the reason I like that is, at least partly, is because, and I blame it a little on UC Davis's aroma wheel of some years ago. And wine writing has devolved to coming up with as many descriptors of the wine. Oh, this is cherries, this is apricots, this is prunes, whatever it is. And I don't think that way. To me, it's not about aroma per se, unless something's wrong with the wine. I mean, if there's volatile acidity or hydrogen sulfide or acetaldehyde, that's a fault. But other than that, the aroma, to me, it's about the tactility, the mouthfeel. And so, to me, the descriptors that give an impression of the mouthfeel are the good ones. And at the risk of being a little politically incorrect, I miss the days of the old Italians and the old French, often guys, who would describe wines in terms of gender. This is a feminine wine. This is a masculine wine. This is a muscular wine. This is a lithe wine. This wine is more Audrey Hepburn. This wine is more Jane Mansfield. To me, that's very descriptive. That tells me what the mouth is what it's gonna feel like in my mouth, and I just don't think people drink wine because of the way it smells. I think they drink wine because of how it feels in their palate and how it interplays with the food that they're eating.
My name's John Torlato from Torlato Wine Group, and my word is delicious. And the reason I chose this word is because it's my belief that delicious does not require an explanation. Delicious is delicious, and nobody needs to have that explained to them. What I find interesting about this term as it relates to winemaking and wines is that delicious is the confluence of all the work that went into growing the grapes, farming them along during a vintage, picking them at the right moment, all of the work during fermentation, moving to élevage, and finally being put into the bottle. And when you think about all the thousands of decisions that are made along the way, the end result, theoretically, is supposed to be a wine that's delicious and does not require an explanation. So maybe it's too vague, but it's a word that the wine consumer can completely understand without it being overly technical. I could talk about fermentation and extraction and tannins and acidity and structure and length. Delicious is a reference to the alchemy that creates a great wine. All the pieces that come together at one moment in time in a bottle after many, many hours and weeks and months of work and thought and decision making. It's the alchemy that makes for a great wine. And this is my word, and our hope as winery owners and winemakers is to present wines to our friends and family and consumers that are in fact delicious.
Okay, hello, I'm Giovanni Folonari, a wine producer from Tuscany, Italy. And today I wanted to tell you about two words that I always use to define the wines: elegance and identity. These two are the most important thing that a wine should have today to be successful. Elegance, because you need to be able to drink the wine, enjoy it, possibly with food, and not just drink a sip of it and just leave it in the glass. Identity, because there is so many wines around out there that if you have a wine that is just ordinary, even if it's good wine, people are not going to remember it. And thank God we have a few things that really help for identity in our case. One is our region, Tuscany, and one is the fact that we have a great variety that we grow in Tuscany that is called Sangiovese. And both of these, together and separately, I mean, we have great Cabernets or Merlots produced in Tuscany. They give identity to our wines, which make them stand out. So these are the two words that are winners for me.
I'm Matt Michael with Baldassari Family Wines. The word I'm going to talk about today is élevage. It sounds like a very fancy, pretentious word. It's really a word that essentially is a synergistic effect, or the lifting of a wine when it's put in combination with a new barrel. So things happen with the wine and the oak, particularly new oak, that improve the wine to a degree that it wouldn't be improved by if it was in a neutral barrel or a neutral vessel. That could be aromatically, it could be flavor-wise. So when it ages in that new vessel over a period of time, that lifting we call élevage. And so I demystified the word, and it's not a fancy word. Anyone can use it there.
Okay, I'm Michael Moyer. I'm the Director of Wine and Viticulture at Lake Michigan College. And the Vino Lingo term for today is enology. Now, enology is spelled E-N-O-L-O-G-Y, and it's the science of wine. And that word comes from, just like biology is the science of life, right? Enology, if you look in British English, it's spelled O-E-N, where in English we get rid of the O at the beginning and just E-N-O-L-O-G-Y. Well, O-E-N is the Greek word for wine. So there you have it. Enology is the science of wine.
Bonjour, my name is Jean-Charles Boisset with the Boisset Collection, and my word today will be excess. Why excess? Because I recommend everyone to use wine as the catalyst of discussion, and to use wine to be adventurous, to be audacious, to use multiple bottles of wine throughout the meal to discover the world at large, and to be excessive with what you eat, what you drink, what you do, what you experience, and to allow a large part of excess as life is a theater to really discover in an adventurous way the world and others. So to excess.
Hi, I'm Casey Stringer from Stringer Cellars. My wine term is feral. I love making Syrah. I've been using Syrah grapes from cold climate vineyards in Mendocino County, and they can be downright feral sometimes. And I describe that word to, when I'm tasting with people, and just say it's the wild, sweaty, stinky, bloodiness that cold climate Syrah can sometimes get. I love it. Sometimes people don't get it, but that's my kind of wine.
Hi, this is Casey Wiersba at Shady Lane Cellars, and our Vino Lingo phrase of the day is fermentation cap. So when a winemaker talks about a fermentation cap, we're referring to the skins and seeds that float to the top of the red fermentation. Red fermentations are a combination of skins, seeds, and pulp. And as the fermentation gets going and the yeast and enzymes start breaking the skin, seeds, and pulp down, the juice sinks to the bottom, or juicy wine rather, because it's heavier, and the solids float to the top. And usually that is skins and maybe a couple seeds. So that fermentation cap are the solids that float to the top of the fermentation.
Hi, I'm Aaron Pott, and I'm the owner of Pot Wine. And I'm not going to do a word today. I'm going to do a phrase. And the phrase is "Ça sent la jeune fille qui se néglige." And it literally means that smells like the young girl that neglects herself. And I think it's a perfect phrase for those stinky, smelly wines. As a father of two young girls aged 10 and 12, I can tell you that their feet are beastly.
Hello, my name is Wally Maurer from Domain Berry & Cellars, and I'm going to tell you about a word that we use here in wine growing called green harvest. Short, aka thinning. And what we try to do is a grapevine can produce 80 to 90 clusters of grapes. We need to leave those buds so we have something from Mother Nature. But we cannot get all of those grapes ripe enough to make the phenolic quality of wine that we're looking for. So we need to take part of the crop off, which we throw to the ground when they're green. There's the green part of the harvest. And we take these off just like we're harvesting. We throw them on the ground so the remaining grapes can get riper and have a higher level of quality, giving us, again, a higher probability of making a better bottle of wine later. Green harvest is something that is practiced the world around. So expect it, and really expect it from an estate winery where you hope that they're in cahoots. The wine grower and the winemaker are doing things like that to bring you a better bottle of wine. The grapes never leave my property unless they go home with you.
I'm Elias Fernandez, winemaker here at Schaefer Vineyards. The word I'm defining is hillside select. So what is hillside select to me? Hillside select is, first of all, the selection of the best Cabernet clones here on the Schaefer property. That will be determined by the vintage and how Mother Nature affected each of the clones here at Schaefer Vineyards. And then the wine itself is defined by where it's grown, the Stag's Leap district. The wine is always dark in color, soft in tannin, really a wine of a place. I mean, it's a very unique wine. Always the same, powerful, soft, rich tannin. Just a nice wine to drink now or age. It does age beautifully. I mean, I had the 78 maybe a month ago, and it's still a lively wine, still color, life in it. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Laura Diaz Muñoz. I'm the winemaker for Ehlers Estate, and I'm going to talk about house palate. So house palate is a term that we use when someone is used to drink always the same style of wines. So they like, or they get used to that same style, and when they taste something different, they see that it's different and they don't like it that much. So you develop a house palate because you are just drinking always the same style of wines or the same wine region, and you are kind of like limiting your palate.
Tony Kosichik here at Kosichik Vineyards in Harpersfield, Ohio. One of the words that we use around here a lot is ice wine. Cannot be made everywhere in the country. We do make it here in the Grand River Valley. Definition of ice wine: we have to pick the grapes at 17 degrees Fahrenheit or colder, immediately process them. No sugar additions. The must will usually be right around 40 bricks while we're pressing, and then we'll ferment that out down to a range of about 20 bricks, and you end up with a very sweet dessert wine.
I'm Tom Rinaldi, been making wines in Napa Valley for more than 40 years, and my term is going to be kitty litter box, as a polite way of calling Sauvignon Blancs that have that cat pee aroma. So it's a term that comes out from time to time and generally avoidable, I hope, but that's my term of the day.
Hi, Scott Shull here from Raptor Ridge Winery, and we're talking about Vino Lingo and phrases or slogans that come up in winemaking. What we do each year during harvest is there's language that describes situations and ends up getting repeated by us and harvest interns, and then we memorialize that in a harvest t-shirt. So one from last year's harvest was make it like it didn't happen. Invariably there's, at the end of every day, there's cleanup, and we say, I want it like it didn't happen. Or there's an accident or a spill or a hose breaks, and it's make it like it didn't happen. So make it like it didn't happen.
Hi, this is Steve Lutz with Linné Estate Winery here in Yamhill, Oregon. And my Vino Lingo term is minimalism. You hear that talked about a lot in Oregon, and really what it pertains to is that we try to have minimal intervention in both winemaking and in the vineyard. We want the terroir to express itself, and so we don't want to over manipulate the wine. So we try to keep oxygen from being introduced to the wine, and we try to move the wine around as minimally as possible including using pumps that push wine with gas versus pull it with a mechanical flywheel. We try to use gravity in our winemaking. And then really, we try to keep it very simple. A lot of us don't even inoculate with yeast, don't inoculate for a secondary fermentation. Just keep it very minimal. And that's my word for the day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Rogstead, winemaker with Cuvée-San. Today I'd like to talk to you about MOG, M-O-G. MOG is a term for material other than grapes. And when you're in the vineyard and you're picking grapes, you don't want MOG, you just want grapes. So we'll often, if we're purchasing fruit, include a little rider in the contract that states how much MOG is allowable, and it's generally none. But in the old days, when there was mechanically harvested fruit from vineyards that didn't have good equipment, there could be a lot of MOG, and you could actually reject a load for that kind of a delivery. But there you go. No MOG.
I'm Elizabeth Viana, winemaker at Chimney Rock, and my Vino Lingo term is mouthfeel. Being a winemaker here in Stag's Leap District, I think a lot about how a wine actually coats your palate, the texture, the viscosity. And so I think when you make great wine, you have great grapes, it's always really easy to make stuff smell good. But to make it have great texture and richness and velvety, mouthfeel is something that I absolutely obsess over in winemaking. So think about that next time you taste red wine.
So hi, my name is Scott Neal, Coeur d'Terre Vineyard owner winemaker, along with my wife and my family in the McMinnville-Avier, beautiful place. You got to come see us sometime. My Vino Lingo term is muscular. And so the reason I use muscular is the McMinnville-Avier, where we're located, tends to make these Pinot Noirs that have strength and power and that have a more muscular component to them. So a lot of times people will talk about masculine versus feminine, and this would certainly be that more masculine, to use these probably non-politically correct terms now. But it's when our wines have more tannin, more structure, more kind of depth to them. And from a winemaking perspective, what I have to do is actually be cognizant of that so they don't become over the top on the muscularity, because Pinot Noir is about layers and depth and feminine and layers and subtlety. So, but we embrace that muscularity that comes from the McMinnville-Avier.
My name is Chris Carpenter. I'm the winemaker for Cardinal, La Jolla, Mount Brave, and La Jolla in the Napa Valley. And the wines that I make, 95% of them are fermented with native yeast. And what that means, native yeast, is the yeast that take a ride in on the grapes, that live on the grapes in the vineyard, are the first actor in the fermentation process. The yeast that have been evolving in the winery alongside my winemaking style and whatever crossbreeding that I've done with the few yeasts that I've inoculated over the years, create a native population in the winery. And so when you hear winemakers say that they're using native yeast, they're using yeasts that are endemic to their vineyards and their winery, and they don't add anything. And those create their own styles, their own flavors, and combined, they create another level of complexity.
So I'm Risch Salvatore, and I'm here to talk to you about one of the pieces of machinery we bought just a few years ago to improve wine quality. And this is a long vibrating sorting table that we use to pull out material other than grapes, also known as jacks and leaves and anything else, and sort fruit. So the sorting table at our house is termed the No Jack 3000.
Okay, my name's Eric Cotton. I'm one of the owners and winemakers here at Silvercrest Cellars, and our wine term today is really no terms. We are serious about making good wine. We understand the words, we know the words, but we primarily speak English. Even though everything sounds cooler when you say it in French, for sure. But we're not trying to impress anybody with our language, and we just say what we mean all the time and keep it real simple. we don't want to push anybody away who walks into the winery, because some people come in, they're already intimidated, and they want to act like they know everything, but they don't, and they're new, and that's fine. We were new once too. So we speak English. So instead of saying bâtonnage, like, what does bâtonnage mean? And bâtonnage means we started with a stick. So, hey, we started with a stick, we mix it up. Terroir, which I think used to mean something, and still does, but I think it's become a marketing term now. And I think sometimes people use it to mean two things. One is we don't know why this happened, and B, we don't feel like talking about it. We don't want to explain it, so we'll just say, it's terroir. It's magic.
I'm Julie Johnson from Tres Sabores, and this is my Vino Lingo word, organic, as in I'm an organic farmer. But it's not the O word, it's all about the D word. It's diversity, and it is soil health, and it is as diverse and as individualized to your particular spot in soil, and it is your soil, and it's your soul, and it is your system of farming that works for you and works for all the critters, from the soil to the air. And that's what makes a vineyard organic.
Okay there. Hi, I'm Chris Williams from Brooks Winery, Amity, Oregon, Willamette Valley. Pinot Noir and Riesling, it's our big thing. So Oregon wine to me. What is Oregon wine to me? Oregon wine to me, I've been around the industry since the late 90s, and it was really about community. So a lot of the reason I'm here today making the wine still at this wonderful facility is because of the community and the people that came together in Oregon. So back in that period of time, there were about 200 different wineries in the area. We all really kind of knew each other, had a good idea of what kind of was going on, and we all benefited when one of us did well. So it was always fun to not only feel like when you did something good, you were doing something good for yourself, but you really felt like you were doing something good for the industry. In that about 10, 15-year period of time, we've really seen how much the industry has grown and kind of exploded. And so to me, it's fun to see that what we thought was a good base of community and helping each other out really turned into something that was super beneficial for the entire industry, and it really was good for Oregon wine. So for me, if I was to pick one word, again, to describe Oregon wine, it would just be community.
So I'm Richie Allen. I'm the Director of Winemaking and Viticulture at Rombauer Vineyards. And the term I've been given or been volunteered for is overcropping. Overcropping is a subjective term, but it usually refers to a point when there is too much crop per vine or too many grapes on the vine, and you end up with either a crop which is very dilute in flavour and low in colour, or if it's a challenging vineyard on a site where you can't always get the crop ripe, if you hang too much crop, you invariably can't get enough ripeness into that crop. So when you overcrop, it generally makes poor wine.
Hi, I'm Greg Northall. I'm the winemaker for Davis Bynum. We make some fantastic Pinot Noirs, and one of the practices that we employ is called pigeage, which is a French word to describe a punch down. When you're making wine, you want to keep the grapes, well, first of all, when you're making red wine, you have the grapes in the tank. So to keep those grapes wet and to keep extracting all the wonderful things out of the skins and out of the grapes, you need to either punch them down, or you would do something called a pump over, which is where you draw the wine out of the bottom and sprinkle it over the top. In the case of pigeage, it's the punch down. It's the French word for the punch down. And you simply get to the top of the tank with a device like a giant potato masher and push the grapes down into the fermenting juice. And you do that every day, let's say twice a day. And you will extract more color, more flavor, more tannins, all the things that you want out of your wine. So pigeage, that's a good thing for Pinot Noir.
My name is Joe Wright. I'm the winemaker here at Left Coast Cellars, and my word today is Pinot Meunier. We grow 3 acres of Pinot Meunier here at Left Coast Cellars, but we use primarily for our sparkling wine program. That said, on really warm years, we've made some incredible still red wine out of it. Pinot Meunier is one of 3 that I know of, the noble grapes of Champagne. Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Pinot Meunier are what are typically blended for sparkling wines out of Champagne. I do also know that the Meunier, and because I've made one specifically for sparkling wine, is definitely adds the structure, the backbone. It's the core of texture in sparkling wine, in my opinion.
I'm Tom Fitzpatrick. I'm the winemaker for Oloro Vineyard in the north end of the Willamette Valley in Oregon, in the Chehalem Mountains. And my Vino Lingo word is polyphenol, or phenolic compound. So a class of compounds that includes things that you're very familiar with. Color, so an anthocyanin pigment is a polyphenol. Tannin, the texture that you get in wine, that either velvety or maybe chalky, hopefully not, texture that you can get in a wine is tannin, also a polyphenol. Some of the bitterness you get in wines can be polyphenol monomers, so there's a lot of attributes of wine that are polyphenols. Even some benefits, health benefits that they talk about from wine come from some of those polyphenol compounds.
Hi, my name is Bill Sweat. I'm the owner winemaker of Winderly Vineyard and Winery in the Dundee Hills of Oregon. And this is my Vino Lingo word, and that is preps. We're a biodynamic vineyard, and preps are what we refer to as for preparations. Within the biodynamic world, we have a number of different elements we use to put in compost and for sprays on the vineyard to help the vineyard come into balance. You've probably heard of the 500 spray, which is a cow horn manure, or a 501, which is silica. These are all little preparations that we do in homeopathic quantities and spray on the vineyard, typically in droplets on the soil or in a mist over the vineyard in an effort to allow the vines to better balance themselves.
Hi, I'm Bruce Cakebread of Cakebread Cellars, part owner of it with my brother now. And the term I'd like to talk about is racking. And so what's that mean? Racking is when you're taking the wine out of barrels or out of tank, but leaving the lees or the sediment on the bottom. So we want to take all the good clear wine out, but leave the sediment. And so that is racking.
All right, I'm Mackenzie Gallagher. I'm co-owner of Rove Estate here in beautiful Traverse City, Michigan, and my wine term today is refractometer. It's a little tool that we use in the vineyard, and we're able to take samples when it gets closer to harvest time, and we take samples of grapes, smush them up in a little baggie, and we drip it into like a glass piece, and we're able to see the bricks, which is another word for sugar, and to see as we get closer to when it's time to harvest.
Hi, my name is Ian Birch. I'm the winemaker at Archery Summit, and my term is Romo-Pigeage. Romotage means pump over. Pigeage means punch down. So a Romo-Pigeage is when you pump over a certain area of the fermentation, and then you get your punch down tool and you punch down the area that you just wetted. And the intended effect is to get a decent amount of maceration without really pushing that fruit and kind of making that fruit smush. You're keeping the berries intact the whole way down. And the interns love it too, because when you have to punch down something that you haven't punched down yet in the life of the ferment, it's a really, really hard thing to do. And I really think that that's one of the strongest characteristics in our Pinot Noir, is the effect that we get from doing Romo-Pigeage in our Pinot Noir fermentations. It keeps the wines concentrated, but it still gives them a finesse. I feel like we're not taking too much out of the skins, and we're not macerating too much, but it gives us this nice sort of brilliant linearity in the wine.
Hi, I'm Alexis. I'm a winemaker, a French winemaker, making wine in the southern Provence, southern French region, Provence. I would like to introduce you to the term skin maceration. Berries are made out of a skin and pulp inside. Pulp is a juicy part with sugar, with acids, and that's the main part of the grape. But the skins, the skins have the pigments for color and fragrances as well. And while you are macerating the skins, once you've crushed the grapes with the juice, you get more or less color, depending on the time you keep your juice on the skins. More color and more flavors. That's what we call skin maceration. And depending on the temperature we do that, we get more or less color, more or less flavors. And that's a technical thing in winemaking, but very important for us in the rosé world, because color of rosé is a real big thing, and we want to choose the perfect color for our rosé.
Hi, I'm Brian Maloney, and I'm the winemaker with Buena Vista. And I'm a farm boy. I grew up raising cows, sheep, pigs, chickens. And one of the interesting things about the smells of wine is a lot of them actually are pretty barnyardy and dirty. And some of them end up being good things that are going to develop out, and some of them don't. And as a winemaker, one of the things with Pinot Noir especially that I look for is, as it's developing, a little bit of a pig shit aroma. When you see a little bit of that pig shit come out, that's a good thing. When it's horse shit, you know it's Brett and you're in trouble. And so as a winemaker, I'm looking to see how shitty it is. And I think that's one of the interesting things, and maybe one of the personal things about me and how I experience wines.
So my name is Whitney Yates, and I'm with Yates Family Vineyard. And when I am walking through our vineyard right before harvest, and I'm eating the grapes to see if we're ready for harvest, I like to judge the skins. And usually about 2 weeks before we pick, the snappiness of the skins kind of backs off, and it turns into a little bit more of a mature skin. And so I kind of wait for the snappy skins to change before harvest. So I think that'd be my term, would be snappy skins.
My name is Pam Starr, and I am the owner, founder, and winemaker of Crocker and Starr Winery. My business partner is Charlie Crocker. He owns this fantastic estate here in St. Helena. And when we do research of planting a new block, we do what's called soil profiling. And it's where we get a backhoe and we dig 6 feet down. And we hire a soil scientist to come in and assess the girth and length and the quantity of roots throughout the entire profile. So if you start at soil level, visually what you see, and then as you drop down into the soil 6 feet, that's the profile. Where do rocks begin? Where does the clay start? Is there any modeling? How much sand is involved? It's really fun.
My name is Melissa Burr. I'm director of winemaking here at Stiller Family Estate, and the question is what words define wines sometimes, and us winemakers are always on the lookout for sulfides, stinky compound. So there's a lot of words for a wine that's stinky that we use as winemakers, and some of them are kind of fun to throw around, but basically what we're looking for is any kind of sulfide issues that might occur in wine from various reasons, so we can mitigate them. So that is something that pops up for us at times, is ways to define stinky wines. Not that I've ever had any, but if I did, I'd know how to talk about it.
I'm Dave Miller, White Pine Winery, and my Vino Lingo term is stop fermentation. And we stop the fermentation in our reserve Riesling. It's a classic technique for retaining a little bit of sweetness in the wine. And so the wine it has natural grape sugar. We don't add any sugar to it. By stopping the fermentation and not letting all the sugar turn to alcohol, it's only about 10% alcohol, so it's very light, very fruity. And it's a term not everybody knows. So there's my Vino Lingo term.
My name is Sean O'Keefe. I'm the winemaker at Mari Vineyards. And the terms I would like to talk about are Stücks and Doppelstücks. These are large oval barrels. A Stück holds traditionally about 1,200 liters, which is about 330 gallons. And a Doppelstück, a double Stück, is one, it's also oval, that holds about 2,400 liters or 660 gallons. And they're, for me, vessels that can make the really beautiful aged dry Rieslings that I like to make. There's also foeders, but those tend to be circular and like a very large barrel, and you find those more in the Mosel. But I studied in the Pfalz, so I like my Stücks.
Hi, I'm Linda Neal from Tierra Roja, and this is my Vino Lingo moment. And I would say that one word that most consumers just kind of go, huh? And don't understand is suckering. So out in the vineyard, one of our most important and time-consuming activities in the springtime is suckering. And well, what is that? So we are removing unwanted growth. So let's say, for example, we have the trunk coming up from the ground and it spreads out into a cordon typically. And all the way from the ground up the trunk and along that cordon, we have huge quantities of unwanted growth. When we prune in the wintertime, we are pruning the canes that were green last year. Those are the canes that have fruit. The buds on those, they lignify, which is they turn dormant. And in the wintertime, we'll clip them back to where there's 1 or 2 buds for each of these spurs, right? So I guess there's a whole bunch of lingo. But at each one of these growing points, we have a bud that's going to emerge into a new green shoot, and that's where the fruit will be. But all this old wood is covered with an explosion of other green shoots that are not fruitful, and we want to eliminate most of those. Sometimes we need to leave one just for a replacement. Let's say we've had a dieback or a broken spur. But removing all of this unwanted green growth, we're removing suckers, so we are suckering.
Hi, I'm Erica Almeida Mooney of Lagniappe Peak Vineyards here on Atlas Peak in Napa Valley, and my wine term is sweaty saddle. We use it when we talk about our Malbec. It's that very nice little watery feeling you get on the sides of your tongue when tasting a very juicy, ripe wine. We call it sweaty saddle.
Okay, I'm Don Hagee. Vidon Vineyard is my winery and vineyard here in Oregon. The Vino Lingo I remember most from my early days is tractor blight, which is the disease caused by not steering correctly between narrow rows of vines and sometimes having to go back and repair line posts and vines.
That's pretty damn good.
Hi, this is Steve Johnson from Parallel 44 Vineyard and Winery. And as a winemaker, we like to use the word turting. Turting is basically a description of what you see when you open the press in terms of the skins and seeds clumping together. And we know we've had just the right extraction when you open the press and see what look like little turds. If it's not clumped up, we haven't pressed enough. If it's too tight, we've pressed too hard. I don't know, we just one day we looked in the press and said, it looks like a bunch of turds.
So my name is Karen Warnelius Miller with Garden Creek Vineyards. My Vino Lingo term is vigneron. We love this word, being that it is incredibly expansive in the terms of what it really means is one that grows the grapes and makes the wine. And that is exactly who we are. To be true vignerons is to have your own piece of property, take in your own fruit, and make the wine. So the French actually don't have a word for winemaker, which is a beautiful thing. It's a vigneron.
Jeff Lemon, Lemon Creek Winery. I'm a winemaker. My Vino Lingo word is vinification. And here's what I'm thinking. It all starts with the vine, the vin part. And we spend a lot of time nurturing and growing the vine to get to where it's producing fruit, at which point we can take and vinify that to turn it into a beverage that we all enjoy. After the work is done, we drop off everything in between, and we end up at vacation.
My name is Alice Warnicki-Sutro. I'm the owner at Sutro Wine Company, and my Vino Lingo is, or lingua, my wine word of the day is volcanics. And that's a terroir term, and it means, what kind of soil, but I sort of have a love-hate relationship with it because it's way too vague and misused, and volcanic wine is becoming very popular. Of course, I make volcanic wine because it's grapes that are grown on 2 to 5 million year old volcanic bedrock with a thin topsoil, about 24 inches, and right underneath that is all white. It looks like, it's ash, it's tough. That's why our road right here that we're on is called Chalk Hill Road, but it's not chalk, it's volcanic ash. But the love-hate relationship comes with it being overused. And what folks think about is that the wine is drawing, minerality from being embedded in ash. But the important part about volcanics is that it's just a really nutrient deprived, kind of withholding, sort of a stingy soil. So its main effect is that it naturally stresses the vines. You end up with lower yields and more concentrated aromas in your fruit. And that's what I think of in terms of volcanics.
I'm Alex Sokolblasser, the winemaker here at Sokolblasser Winery. The wine technical term I am going to use today, it's a very technical term, and it describes wine that is not good. And how we say that here at Sokolblasser is we call it weasel piss. So when you're drinking a wine and it's just putting the hurt on you, you say, I don't know how quite to describe this other than weasel piss. There you go. Use it at your leisure.
So my name is Brooke Bannister, and I'm the winemaker at Bannister Wines in Healdsburg, California. I'm going to talk briefly about the term wild yeast because it's a term that's kind of lost meaning and has been used to satisfy a bunch of different definitions that people want it to, and it's not actually. I think it's gotten misused at this point, is what I want to say. So specifically, the idea of natural wine, which is wines that are supposedly made with yeasts that aren't identified, but just come in from the vineyard or floating in the air, fall onto the fruit that way. And maybe in natural wine, they use less SO2. That may be one of the things. I'm not sure. I'm not really into natural wine because I think everything is natural by nature. We use amazingly high quality fruit in what we do, and I think that winemaking's always been, except maybe in the most kind of mass production settings, natural. So, but the idea of wild yeasts has, one of the problems is that we've introduced thousands of strains of industrial yeasts into our cities, our towns, for all different kinds of food production purposes over the last 100 years. And so the idea that there's some romantic wild yeast inoculating these wines is fairly improbable. And it's just as likely that they're wines that are already used in the wine industry or came from some other industrial process that were there. So I think the consumer hears this, and there's a lot of misconception out there. There's nothing wrong with doing it naturally at all. I don't want to say that, but the idea that there are special yeasts that are happening in natural wines and are not happening in what we'd call conventional wines is not likely, and I think that's a really important thing to say. And the other detail about the yeast was that my mom actually found an isolated yeasts. Early on in her career, she started looking for those. And some of those are grown in large populations, dehydrated and packaged, and you can buy them. But they're not genetically modified. They're the same exact yeast they were when she found them originally, and they're just as natural as anything else. So we have this particular important little history in the kind of the yeast story of winemaking, because some of the yeast she found are used all over the wine industry at this point, and they're excellent yeasts for making wine, and they came from wild surroundings here. They're just known now as opposed to being unknown.
My name is Anna Diogo Draper. I'm the winemaker for Tessa Vineyards and Winery, and today I'm defining the word winemaker. So winemaker or winemakers is the person or persons responsible for making the wine in a winery. So the first most important decision that head winemaker makes is picking decisions of the grapes, which can make or break a wine. So very important decision right there. So Walking Vineyards decided the exact perfect time to pick those grapes, bring them to the winery, and then making all the decisions related to fermentation. So in what vessels to ferment, what to add to those grapes. And believe me, there's a lot of things or nothing you can add to those grapes. The temperature to ferment, how many pump overs, how many punch downs to make a day, and also the right time to press it. Do we extend the maceration? Do we press right away? And then once the wine is pressed, what barrels does it go to? Also, the winemaker buys the barrels, selects the barrels, which is a very big decision. The coopers they use, the types of toast that we use in the barrel, another thing that can make or break the wine. And then the same way, how long that wine will be in barrel, and then all the decisions come together in the blending room. And making the blend is obviously the most important decision to make, and more creative part of making the wine. Because you can have all these sums that are incredible together, but they somehow just don't work together as a blend. And blending has a lot of trial and error to it, but it's the most fun and creative part of it. And then all the way leading up to bottling and all the decisions to make into how we bottle the wine. So that's it.
All right, my name is Wayne Bailey. I am the wine grower here at Youngberg Hill in McMinnville, Oregon. And I am going to talk to you about the word wine grower, which I just titled myself. It may seem like a strange term because you don't grow wine. However, the first thing that I always like to point out is that wine is an agricultural product. So we are growing the raw product that is the only thing going into wine, which is the grape. It's also important to note that it's not just any grape, but it's a wine grape, which are varietals that have different characteristics than your normal standard table grape. Therefore, you get a wine that has many different characteristics and many different flavors than a table grape that if you made wine out of would taste like alcoholic grape juice. I also like to use the word wine grower because instead of just being in a winery as a winemaker making wine, I am growing the grapes. And so I see the product through from the time in January when we start pruning the vines all the way through harvest in October when we harvest, and then wine making in the winery, into the barrel, and finally into the bottle. So as a wine grower, you're not just doing one thing, you're doing everything that is going into that wine that you're tasting right now.
Hi, Ray. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you again.
I don't think people want to learn about me, but
Good morning, Ray. I'm ecstatic. Knowing that I'm with you, my day is already better.
So I don't know what the question is there, but that's kind of...
that's the answer.
That's the...